This is Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition, the Notorious Five, the introduction. When season 9, Collateral Damage, ended, Angela Lorraine Spencer St. James was 31 weeks pregnant with twins, Quincy V and Isla Lauren. Her and her husband, affectionately known as Q, were parenting 3 children. 12-year-old Michael from Q's previous relationship, 11, almost 12-year-old Melissa, adopted by both Angela and Q, who was the product of an affair between Angela's deceased first husband, Marcus, and her older half-sister, also deceased, Jessica, and 6, almost 7-year-old Angel, Angela's only biological son, who was spontaneously created by her and her deceased husband, Marcus, while they were in the middle of an IVF process. Angela's baby sister, Stephanie Catalina Taylor, was 33 weeks pregnant herself, with a child produced via IVF. The embryo that was transferred into her womb was fertilized using her sister Angela's egg and her deceased husband Marcus's sperm. Stephanie and her husband, pastor and federal agent Corey, had some fertility issues. And now, the couple is currently having what can only be described as a Hosea and Gomer experience. In season 9, Collateral Damage, we learned all about God's commandment to his prophet Hosea to marry the prostitute Gomer. We also learned why he gave that directive and how all of that turned out. Mom Brenda, Angela's mother-in-law from her first marriage, who has become more like a mother to both Angela and Stephanie, had a come-to-Jesus conversation with Pastor Corey, where she pointed out some similarities between Hosea's situation and Pastor Corey's. Howbeit, ever be how, little Miss Stephanie is in the process of developing her new identity as a would-be queen pin. And that does not exactly jive with the life that she and Pastor Corey have been building. Q's siblings are both in the middle of mayhem. His baby sister Anya and her husband Ron Hobbs have a secret, and like Bonnie and Clyde, they riding with each other till the wheels fall off. The problem is Anya might be pregnant, and if she is, Ron might not be the pappy, and if it's a girl, she might be born deaf. Anya and every other member of her family inherited a gene from her mother's side of the family that affects the female-born children. That gene has been passed down through her mother's side of the family, and several of the Baptiste daughters were born deaf, including Anya. Now, at 11 years old, Anya was the victim of an SA that left her traumatized and pregnant, and she handled that situation in Trinidad using bush medicine. As a result, it was kind of difficult for Anya to commit to marrying her now husband Ron because he wanted children and she didn't. She was afraid that not only might she have a deaf daughter, but that deaf daughter might have to live with the same traumas that she did. Eventually, she warmed to the idea of becoming a mother, but she's adamant that she is absolutely not having a child that is the product of an SA. You heard me. It looks like history has repeated itself. Christian, the older brother of the man who SA'd Anya when she was 11, King, just got out of the slammer, and he tracked down, harassed, stalked, and blackmailed Anya. And then he plotted to do the same thing to her that his younger, trifling brother did. The only problem is he didn't consider the file and what happened to his younger brother. So it looks like the same thing has happened to him. Now, nobody knows exactly what transpired, but Q and his childhood best friend / Cody, Woody, have discovered that Christian disappeared right around the time that he was going to execute his devious plan. Then Anya and Ron spontaneously eloped, and they've both alluded to the fact that one of them is covering something up for the other. Q's middle sibling His youngest living biological brother, Donovan, is in the Dominican Republic, presumably being held against his will by the Ramirez crime family. Donovan's children were kidnapped and since rescued, but Donovan is nowhere to be found. His 3-year-old daughter, Bella, affectionately called Baby Bella because she's named after his mother, the Queen Mother, Mrs. Bella Baptiste St. James. His son, Chance Anthony, affectionately called Baby Chance because he's named after their youngest brother, Chance, Anya's twin brother, who was tragically killed when the car that the Queen Mother was driving was ambushed when the twins were just babies. They were taken to the DR by Baby Bella's mother, Veronica. Veronica had an unnatural obsession with the Dominican Republic that stemmed from a childhood trauma. The DR was where she intended to celebrate her high school graduation, and she ended up celebrating the death of her mother. It then became the place where she celebrated every milestone in her life. So when she came up on $1.5 million, she thought the best way to celebrate that would be to do what she's always wanted to: retire in the DR. The only problem with her harebrained scheme was that she took Donovan's children. Now, she was dead wrong for taking Baby Bella away from her father, but she was completely off her rocker to take Baby Chance, who is not her son. The two children were born on the same day, but to two different mothers. Chance's mother, Destiny, died during childbirth, making Donovan his only parent. She never even made an effort to help him raise his son, and she didn't even realize that she cared about the boy until she had to spend 4 months without him. The Newport family had attacked the families, and everyone had to go into hiding. Baby Chance was at Angela and Q's house, so when Angela fled to Puerto Rico, Baby Chance went with her and her children. When that situation was resolved and everyone went back home, Veronica made it her business to pick up Baby Chance every time she picked up Baby Bella. So in her mind, she was taking her kids and blowing town. Too bad she decided to retire in the very country being run by the Ramirez family. The Ramirez family was the 5th family in the Notorious Five Families. At the head is the Lopez family out of Puerto Rico, run by Emmanuel Manny Lopez, the uncle of Angela and Stephanie, the brother of their deceased father, Angel, the father of OBGYN Maribel, psychiatrist Miranda, and tech genius and hacker Lorenzo. Second in command is the Charles family, run by Idra Charles out of St. Lucia. Then out of Trinidad is the St. James family, run by the St. James family patriarch Pops Andy's younger brother Nigel, and the Baptiste family, run by the Queen Mother's younger brother Samuel. The Baptiste family was the lead family nearly 30 years before. But when the original Queen Pen, the Queen Mother, Queen Bella, the matriarch of the St. James family, retired, she did what only bosses can do. She handed the reins to her friend, Manny, and she handed him the talisman of the head of the Ramirez family, Raul. She took the chain off his neck when she took his life and the life of 26 of his men, crippling the Ramirez family, resulting in their excommunication from the Notorious Five Families. For the past 30 years, the Ramirez family has been unable to do business outside of the Dominican Republic. And even on their own island, they've had to compete with the Lopez family and smaller families. They've spent the entire time trying to get their name, their power, and their position back, while competing with other families for that 5th spot. So when Raul Jr., also known as JR, discovered that 2 of the Baptiste and St. James children were on his island, unguarded, and they were the offspring of the son the entire underworld know as the Savant, it was bait that he had to take. Pops Andy, Q, and his 2 best friends, LJ and Woody, flew to the DR to meet up with the 4 families. And together, they were able to rescue Donovan's children. Unfortunately, they were unable to save Veronica. She took a bullet to the head while protecting the children during the ambush. Leaving Woody in the DR to continue the search for Donovan with the four families, Pops Andy, Hugh, and LJ headed back to Texas with the children, and when they arrived, Hugh found that Angela was in the hospital in preterm labor. Thankfully, her cousin and doctor, Maribel, was able to stop Angela from delivering the twins too early. And after a rousing sermon a few days later from Angela's brother-in-law, Pastor Corey, she realized that her husband needed to head back to the DR and find his brother. Before he left, though, he had to have a talk with the two men who he was leaving behind: his father, Pops Andy, and his best friend, Lawrence Johnson, LJ, because he wasn't willing to let either one of those men go with him. They had business they needed to handle at home. When Q got home from the hospital from visiting Angela after she told him that he needed to head back to the DR, he immediately made a beeline for LJ in the guest house. LJ, Regina, their three children, and Regina's mother, Mom Joyce, were all living on Angela and Stephanie's shared estate, along with Q and Angela, their three children, Stephanie and her husband Corey, Q's parents, Pops Andy, and the Queen Mother, Q's youngest living brother Donovan and his two children, baby Bella and baby Chance, and Mom Brenda, Angela's mother-in-law from her first marriage. Q said, "L, let me holler at you for a minute." Stepping out into the courtyard, the two men started talking, and Q said, "Listen, I need a favor. Matter of fact, I need two. I'm heading back to the DR to help find my brother, and I'm not taking you and Pops with me. I need you to help me to convince him that he needs to stay here. And while I'm gone, I need you and him to hold things down here at the house." LJ said, "How you think you gonna get me to help you convince your Pops that he can't go when you ain't convinced me that I ain't going?" Q said, "When I met Angela, you told me that if Angela not safe, ain't nobody safe. I need you here to make sure that she stays safe, man. I also need you here because if for some reason I don't come back, I need you to take care of my family." LJ said, "And that's the reason why I need to go with you, to make sure you come back so you can take care of your family yourself." Q said, "No, you need to stay here so that you have help taking care of my family. You know what I'm talking about. Have you had that conversation with Regina yet?" LJ said, "Bro, this ain't the time to be talking about stuff like that. I figured I'll wait till Donovan get back and everything's settled, and then I'll figure out a way to discuss it with her." Q said, "That's your wife, bro. Between her and Angela, there isn't another woman in the world who knows you better than she does. I'm sure she already knows that something ain't quite right. Sit down and talk with your wife, man." LJ said, "You said you needed two favors, not three. I can't promise you I'm going to do that, man. At least not while you gone. You know my wife. You see how she did Donovan. I'm not trying to be the next one to catch that two-piece without the biscuit. That conversation can go one or two ways, and I don't like my odds. Have you talked to Mom Brenda or the Queen Mother about it? Either one of them can help you, bro." LJ said, "Nigga, what I look like having that kind of conversation with either one of them two old ladies? That's crazy." Q said, "Well, hell, I wasn't the right person to talk about it with either, but you didn't have a problem doing that." LJ said, "I had been drinking, bro." Q said, "Well, how about Maribel? Have you thought about talking to her?" When the two men were done, Q finally got LJ to agree to have the conversation about his issue with Regina with Maribel. And then the two men headed to the main house, to the apartment upstairs, so that they could talk with Pops Andy. When they got there, it was clear that they were interrupting a heated discussion already in progress. At the door, they heard the Queen Mother say, "You have 40 seconds to come up with a good explanation. You better make it good." Then they heard Pops Andy say, "Bella, I'm telling you, it's not what you think. She means nothing." Q, recognizing that there was smoke in the city and not wanting to overhear another word, hurried up and knocked on the door. When the Queen Mother snatched that door open, she had fire in her eyes. And Q said, "Medea, I need to talk to you and Pops real quick." The Queen Mother said, "Boy, it can't wait. We are in the middle of something." Q said, "No, it can't. I'm headed back to the DR and I'm leaving in 30 minutes." When Q and LJ entered the room, they saw Pops Andy smoking a Cuban and looking like he was in the principal's office. He said, "I'm going to need more than half an hour to pack my bags. Q said, no need, because you're not going, Pops. I need you and LJ to stay here and secure the women and children. It's too much going on, and we got too many women on this estate and throughout Dallas that need protection for y'all two to go with me. Woody will be back soon, and he's gonna need some help with some stuff that we got in the works. Pops Andy said, well, take me instead of LJ. LJ said, I'm already staying, Pops, and I understand why he wants to go along and why he wants us to stay. Then Q looked at the Queen Mother and asked, Medea, you got an issue with me going by myself? The Queen Mother said, no, son, I understand. Then Q said, thank you. Can we have the room? The Queen Mother looked at Pops Andy and said, this conversation is not finished. And then she walked out. Then Q looked at LJ and said, bro, can you wait in the hall? LJ said, I thought you wanted me to help you convince him to stay. Q said, I don't think I'm going to have a problem with that. When LJ stepped out, Q looked at his father and said, all my life you told me that it was two things a man should never insert himself in. Another man's money problems and another man's woman problems. I've always respected and admired your relationship with my mother. On the rare occasion that the two of you disagreed, you like to tell me that she was your wife before she was my mother. And whatever was between you and her was between you and her. And I respected that. But if it's sides to be taken, Pops, you know whose side I'm on. Pops Andy said, boy, first of all, it's not what it looks like. And you already know what I'm going to say because you just said it. Mind your business. Q said, how about you stay here and handle your business?